So let's wrap this up, this idea of Bush's foreign policy problems in 1992. And here's another problem that Nixon was sort of talking about there. Um, Clearly, the United States is a superpower in 1992. There's no question about this, right? We're moving from a bipolar world to a unipolar world. But is it really a superpower? Like when you say superpower, what do you mean? Do you mean like the ability to do whatever you want? Because if that's true, the ironic thing is that now that the Cold War is over, the US actually has less freedom of action than it did before. And let me just explain. In the Cold War, Western Europe and our allies around the world, whatever the United States said in this big Cold War against the Soviet Union, the rest of the countries kind of went along with. The US was sort of leading the charge on this side against the Soviet Union and that side. But today, when there's no common enemy, no common threat, Western European countries, and again, allies all around the world, are not going to be as deferential to the United States. They're not going to just say, yeah, if you think it's a good idea, it's a good idea. So the U.S. actually is more hamstrung than it was during the Cold War. Another thing that really sort of puts a question mark on that superpower idea is, again, 1992, there was a recession going on. In the 90s, they had good times, but there were not great times. It was a pretty precarious economic position. There was a recession, especially in 92 when there was election year. And the recession, whenever you have a downturn, and you can just watch this sort of happen, whenever there's a downturn in the economy, that's going to increase xenophobia and isolationism tendencies in a lot of countries, but in the United States as well. So again, we're not quite as willing to sort of be out there, to trust others. There's this push. Remember Pat Buchanan, that part of the GOP, says, let's come home, neo-isolationism. So in all, we have lots of power, superpower by definition, but on the other side of the definition, there's very little. The U.S. has very little control about what's happening in the world. And a good example of this happening in 1992 is what happens in Somalia. Is when George H.W. Bush says, we'll lead this mission in Somalia to help feed people and protect them from the warlords. And that's when Black Hawk Down happens. I think it's about 18 U.S. soldiers that are killed, but that's enough for the U.S. to say, you know what, none of our business, we're out of here. So having power, if having power is superpower, that's great. If having influence is being a superpower, the United States is finding itself a little less okay.